I'm really excited to bring this next piece to you, and it's work that it's research that I've been working on for about the past 15 years. And it all starts with understanding how and why people heal from trauma. And the past 30 years have seen a proliferative explosion in the understanding, in the scientific and clinical understanding of why people get better from trauma. And what started out as being a really technical thing has evolved over the years into being a much more simple thing. And one of the things that we found in the past 10 years is that all of the primary treatments for trauma that are out there work really well. And none of them work better than any other ones. That EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, doesn't work any better than prolonged exposure, doesn't work any better than cognitive processing or some of the hypnotic and psychodynamic methods. And that's interesting, is that they all work, and what we've also learned is that they work well. That a person who is a trauma survivor, if they see and they have symptoms of PTSD, and they see a therapist who is trained in one of those ways, and they are using one of those particular methods, then that person has an 80% chance of recovery. And those are good numbers. That's a good prognostic number to be able to offer, I think, survivors of trauma, that the mental health community can offer an 80% expectancy that you're going to get better. But as I said, what we've learned is that there are no treatments that are better than any others, that they're all equal. So what some of us have done in the field over the past 6 or 8 years is we've started to extract from all of these different treatments. If they're all equal, then whatever is unique about that particular treatment is not adding a whole lot more anything active or valuable to the treatment. So what we've done is to find what is common among all of these effective treatments. And when I've published some of that work, and so have a lot of other people. And when you start to kind of look at that extraction, what you see, there are four ingredients that go into the healing of trauma. And when you complete 4 of these tasks, the trauma survivors no longer meet diagnostic criteria for PTSD. So it's pretty darn simple that you only have to complete really 3. It's kind of 3.5, but we'll go ahead and call it 4. 4 things that when the therapist and trauma survivor complete these activities, these therapeutic tasks, the person no longer meets diagnostic criteria for PTSD. And that is that they have to build and maintain a good therapeutic relationship. And that therapeutic relationship is the most potent ingredient in all helping fields. And that is with reams and reams of data, with lots and lots of good meta-analytic research. What it has consistently showed is the primary reason that people get better across all type of psychosocial treatments is dependent upon how good of a relationship the person has with that care provider. Twice as potent, at least 2 times. Some research is saying as much as 10 times, but at least, at the very minimum, at least twice as potent as what we do technically. If we're having the person write down something or wagging our fingers if we're doing EMDR, any of that technical stuff, at least twice as potent is the quality of the therapeutic relationship. And for those of you who are watching this video, then what you know is that you got most of the recovery, most of the juice just in building a relationship with somebody and helping them to walk through the things that they are afraid of. That is how people heal from trauma. There's a couple of other pieces, but it is mostly relational. That trauma does not resolve when people are sitting home doing self-help stuff. And there's no data that shows that. So that a relationship is absolutely a priori. And kind of embedded underneath of that, what also is a crucial ingredient of treatment is expectancy, hope. That it is our job when we are working with people who have been traumatized, when we work with people that have been through horrible life experiences, it is our job to be able to light up a vision for them, that there's an alternative to the bleak and dark death march that you are on presently, that there is a process by which, as you engage in taking care of yourself, as you engage in reactivating positive activities in your life, as you begin to take action rather than shutting down, your life's going to get better. And it is our job to be able to communicate that and to reframe every single negative, hopeless, thwarting thing that a person, because of their fear, is not willing to take effort to do, and it'll never work, and I call that, when they go into the kind of Eeyore mode, is that we need to get to be Tigger, we need to kind of talk about and to be able to counter with hope. And continue to be a font of hope, continue to generate positive expectancy. So that's ingredient one, is the therapeutic relationship and with positive expectancy in that. Ingredient two, and the second most important component of that, is teaching people how to get and stay in relaxed bodies. And those are two different things. And a lot of treatments out there don't differentiate between the two of those. That there's a lot of treatments out there that teach people how to get relaxed, and they'll have them do, progressive muscle relaxation or diaphragmatic breathing or guided visualization, and that's like a one-time kind of take a break from the activities of daily life to get your body relaxed. What I think a lot of more forward-thinking and sentient researchers in the field of traumatic stress have come to see is that much more important than helping folks to get their bodies relaxed is to teach trauma survivors how to stay in relaxed bodies. Not just getting it relaxed, but how to start to develop that fancy $10 word called interoception, which is a felt sense of oneself, to be able to monitor in an ongoing way all the way through my day. And noticing when my body's starting to become constricted, when I'm beginning to have a fear response, and intervening immediately to bring myself back to relaxation. You cannot have PTSD in a relaxed body. You cannot have distress in a relaxed body. For the rest of your life, begin to notice this. Any time for the rest of your life that you find yourself having distress about anything, whether that's finances, whether that's when you're driving your car out on the freeway, when you are thinking about your own mortality, when you've got work deadlines, any time in your life that you have distress, what you'll start noticing is that you have constricted muscle body concomitant with your experience of distress, always and forever. And as you teach people to start to be in a relationship with their bodies where they can monitor it, where they are not living up in their heads all the time, and that they are instead beginning to have a felt sense of themselves, and that they can feel when the muscles in their legs, when the muscles in their pelvis, when the muscles in their belly, when the muscles in their neck are constricted, and they take their attention out of their head just for a second, put their attention on those muscles, and then release those muscles, they immediately, within 1 second, they are inside of a relaxed body. And what happens after 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 seconds of that is they get back all of their reasoning capacities, all of their judgment, all of their fine motor skills, all of their language capacities. They're able to reconnect with hope, with their God, be able to do positive things now and see things differently, that while they're in that constricted state, they're consistently losing all of the thinking part of their brain, while more and more and more, the animal part of their brain is taking over, trying to get them safe. And that counteracting that process of the instinctual response after a trauma is a person perceives danger everywhere they look. And so what they have is this constantly activated autonomic nervous system that's trying to keep them safe. But what it's doing is that there are not really very many dangers, that the person's walking around perceiving threat everywhere where there's not real danger. And so what we help them to do in good treatment is that we help them to dial down their arousal and to attenuate the energy in their body only to the task that's in front of them, so that they are only bringing the energy that is required for the completion of that task, that they're not jacked up all day long like this, and that they're producing symptoms when they're in that state. So that is a big part of trauma recovery. So we help people to build therapeutic relationships. We help them to be in relaxed bodies and stay in relaxed bodies, to develop that interoception, that monitoring of their own internal state, and being able to intervene with themselves and lessen the constriction and lower their arousal. And then the third thing is that we help people to finally tell their stories. And to be able to tell their stories while they are in a relaxed bodies. And being able for a person who is a trauma survivor to tell their story while they are in a relaxed body, what that does is that heals primarily the symptoms of flashbacks and nightmares. So what we're learning in our field is that folks that don't have flashbacks and nightmares, that they're not kind of constantly being intruded upon by these memories of the past, they don't even need to tell their stories, at least not formally and in a therapeutic context. They will tell their stories in their relationships, but we don't need to evoke that process as part of treatment. The only reason that we would ever evoke a narrative process, a telling of the story, of going back into past memories, is that because a person is still having flashbacks and nightmares after they have learned to regulate their autonomic nervous system and stay in relaxed bodies. And I call it forward-facing trauma therapy. And the reason we call it forward-facing is because what most people believe about the way that they heal trauma, what they've had to do to heal their trauma, is that they go in and they see a therapist, and that sometime within 3 or 4, 6 or 8 or 10 sessions, we're going to go back and do archaeology. We're going to go dig up all of these past memories and have you kind of wade through them and talk about them and revisit them. And for the folks that can tolerate that, they heal. It works. But it's a really painful and difficult and challenging process that only about 60, depending on whose research you read, somewhere between 60 and 75% of the clients who embark upon that process make it all the way through to the end. A lot of people drop out because of how strenuous and how demanding and how scary it is. So what if there was a way to help people to start to feel better and to begin to function better from jump, from the very first session, that they could begin to improve their functioning, improve their quality of life, to have minimal suffering. And if we need to revisit the memories, we can do that down the road, but what we're not doing is that we're not putting things in stasis to help them to develop these skills so that we can get ready to uncover this stuff. Instead, what we're doing is that we're helping them to leave the first or second session with me and to be, or with a therapist, and to be able to have a better quality of life immediately. That is kind of, if you think about that as a pyramid, at the bottom rung is that we build therapeutic relationships. The next thing we do is, once we get a good therapeutic relationship built, then we help our clients to be in relaxed bodies. Now, and if we can do those two things successfully, then most of the people who are trauma survivors, their symptoms go away. And one of the things that we've done and looked at, over the past several years of looking at this, is those first two things. What's interesting about that is that those do not require a master's degree in counseling to do. And what's really exciting to me about this is that empowering people to heal their own, and to empowering people who are not normally clinical professionals, but who work with people, like pastors and faith leaders, like other care providers, physicians, nurses who don't normally work with, psychological aspects, helping them to build therapeutic relationships with the people that they're working with, and helping them to teach their patients, their clients, their parishioners about A, the way their autonomic nervous system works, and B, how to relax their muscles while they are confronting things that they are afraid of, is trauma treatment proper. Now, before I pull all this together into an assemblage and show you how that all of this works in a way that is a treatment, let me add the fourth thing. So we've got therapeutic relationship, being able to relax one's body and keep it relaxed, being able to tell one's story while staying in a relaxed body while they're telling that story, and what that's doing is exposure and paired with relaxation. And when you confront something of which you are afraid, and you do that in a relaxed body, is desensitization. It takes the sting out of it. It makes it, the next time you encounter that situation, if you encountered it with a relaxed body, the next time it's not going to be near as stress-provoking as it was in the previous time. What happens with trauma survivors, though, is that they never relax. They confront all of those things in their life head on and with brute force, so it never starts getting less intense. The situations that they encounter in their life, the traffic, their children's behavior, their bank account, they constantly produce that same level of stress over and over again, producing symptoms. And so that when folks come to see me, what I help them to start doing is to navigate through their lives, beginning to confront those situations with a relaxed body so that they're taking the sting out of it, so that as they go forward in their lives, they are becoming less and less distressed, less and less stressed out, more and more comfortable, more and more efficient and effective. In the therapeutic world, we call that cognitive restructuring, but in the kind of paraprofessional world, as we've developed these skills for paraprofessionals and for other helping professionals, is we've called this just simply psychoeducation. Is teaching people about what's going on inside of themselves, teaching people about how what's happening with them is not sickness, not illness, not brokenness, but it is that they adapted to these overwhelming experiences from their past. And the problem is that they are staying at that heightened level of instinctual response and intensity as they encounter the rest of the situations of their lives. So that's what trauma does, is it heightens the person's arousal level, and they go forward from the trauma now, as I said in earlier presentations, perceiving a much more dangerous world. And when people are perceiving a much more dangerous world, they are much more jacked up. So we want to work on that with both ends of helping people lower the intensity in their bodies, but also helping them to change their perceptions of the world and helping them to see, oh, I perceive this as a danger. I perceive somebody's judgment of me as a danger. But I'm not really in danger while somebody is criticizing me. And that comes from all of my painful learning in the past of painful experiences where I did encounter criticism as a child and as an adolescent that really did hurt me pretty badly. And what's happening is I'm still staying at that level of arousal and heightened energy in my body as I encounter those situations in the present. And what I've never done up until I learned this stuff is I've never confronted one of those situations with lowered intensity. Instead, what I've done is every time that I've encountered a situation where I'm being criticized, I harden up and I grind myself through it. And so each time I encounter criticism, it stays at that level.